Shalom, 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 Yasha. It's your boy, Brother Shamu Allah, back at you with another quick edifying video. Today's lesson is going to be called Teaching Things Which They Ought Not. Teaching Things which they ought not. All right, first and foremost, I'm going to give all praises, honor, and glory. I want to say, Call Halal Yahawah, Bahasham, Yahawashi, Bahasham, Rawchaa, Qadash. That's all praises to the Heavenly Father, whose name is Yahawah, and his only begotten Son's name, who you ignorantly call Jesus, whose name is Yahawashi. All right, and the Holy Spirit, which is the Rawchaa Qadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone, who have ruled well to the Spirit and have fed and edified the sheep in these last days, and has pushed this gospel and this truth to the four corners of the earth in these last days. A mighty shalom. Another mighty shalom to all you Akim out there laboring on the highways and on the hedges and on the unicorn, which is this internet, pushing this 100% doctrine, this 100% truth to the four corners of the earth in these last days. A mighty shalom to you all as well. All right, today's lesson, like I said, is going to be teaching things which they ought not, right? And, if you hadn't seen it, you had your boy Deacon and Hassad, basically saying that America is not the lake of fire, right? America is not the lake of fire, just bugged out at this point, and, these are the things, but we understand that, the scriptures say what they say, and, people have to, you gotta be weary, and stay focused. All right. So I just want to get a couple of scriptures, right? I mean, we know that, Babylon, right, aka America, is the lake of fire. Okay. You read Jeremiah 51, Jeremiah 50 and 51. This place is going to be, Revelation 18, right? This place is going to be obliterated, all right? With those ICBM missiles, right? Or those intercontinental ballistic missiles, all right, what the scriptures call arrows, all right? Along with Yahawashi and the angels and the chariots, which is going to make this place desolate, right? But it's just, you have these things where, you have these individuals who, try to come up with these different, oh, I know what I'm talking about moments, like all this craziness, all right? But the scriptures talk about this, right? So that's what I really want to talk about. This is the book of Titus, chapter 1. And I'm going to start at verse number 9. It says, holding fast the faith, holding fast the faithful word as he had been taught, that he may be able by sound doctrine both to exhort and to convince the gainsayers. It says, for there are many unruly and vain talkers and deceivers, especially they of the circumcision. All right. And a lot of they got those t-shirt fringes on. All right. And it's all vain talk, right? For naught. Right. So now you've come up, on your own. All of a sudden now the lake of fire is not Babylon, right? It's no longer Babylon. That's the mindset. The scriptures talk about, I believe it's in the book of Job, the deceived and the deceiver are his, right? And this, there's a lot of those, who have these fringes on, who are deceiving the people. Okay. So it says, for there are many unruly and vain talkers and deceivers, especially they of the circumcision, whose mouths must be stopped, who subvert whole houses, teaching things which they ought not, for filthy lucre sake. All right. And that's what they're a lot of them are set up for. They want that money, right? And they're about the bag. They could give, two damns about, the sheep and the flock, right? They're all about themselves and making money, all right? Making that money at the end of the day. That's what they're what they're worried about. All right, hit the subscribe, the whole nine. Okay, and it's a lot of those, especially those, who have those fringes on. Okay, those be the worst ones. But now you've come out with your own, new doctrine that now America is not the lake of fire, right? In the picture that they had it, you watch the video, they show it, and it looks like a lake or a river, right? So now it's a river of fire, right? When the scriptures talk about it's a lake of fire, right? And Elder Apostle Tahar and Elder Apostle Gabar, right, and some other brothers kind of went over it, and the difference between a lake and a river, right? But you have a lot of people who will be deceived by this, right? And because they're not studying, right? Let me see. Let's get this real quick. Book of Acts 17 and verse number 10. It says the apostles at Berea. It says, and the brethren immediately sent away Paul and Silas by night unto Berea, who coming thither went into the synagogue of the Jews. It says, these were more noble than those of Thessalonica, that they received the word with all readiness of mind, and searched the scriptures daily whether those things were so. All right. And that's the thing, right? The following, right? They're not searching the scriptures like the church of Berea. They weren't searching to see if these things are true or were so. All right. So, and I sat there and I watched it, and I had to kind of I got distracted and started doing other things because it was like, what, just craziness. You have this whole, you got your little pictures of this, and then you got a whole picture of America on fire, looking like a lake of fire, but you're saying that's not the lake of fire, right? And it's just, the cockiness, right? Like Elder Apostle Gabar, talked about, you got your boy Deacon, walking around, not walking around, but, the whole time holding a sword, just the proudful mindset, like, oh, I came up with this, and, just boastful. All right. Let's get that. Let's go to, let's go to 1 Corinthians, right? 1 Corinthians chapter 8 and verse number 2. It says, if any man think that he knoweth anything, he knoweth nothing as yet he ought to know. All right. So now it took me, what did he say? 3 months or 3 weeks to come up with this. And, I had extensive research and putting together this PowerPoint. Yeah. And then it's full of lies. You know what I'm saying? At the end of the day. All right. You were taught by the true teachers, and what did you do? You turned your back and rejected it. Now you're leaning into your own understanding. All right, you're leaning into your own understanding. All right, let's go to Salakia. Let's go to 2 Timothy. Right, 2 Timothy 3. We'll start at verse number 1. It says, the character of men in the last days, right? That's the title of it, right? So it says, this know also that in the last days perilous times shall come, for men shall be lovers of their own selves, covetous, boasters, proud, right? You got your little sword in your hand, you're really thinking that you're doing something, right? You got your sword in your hand. Blasphemers, disobedient to parents, unthankful, unholy, without natural affection, trucebreakers, false accusers, incontinent, fierce, despisers of those that are good, right? Traitors, heady, high-minded, lovers of pleasure more than lovers of the Most High, having a form of godliness, but denying the power thereof, from such turn away, right? And that's what they're doing, right? They have a form of godliness, right? They'll call on, they'll say, Yahawah, Bahasham, right? But then throughout their whole things, they're talking about Christ and Jesus, the whole nine, all right? And then what are they doing? They're spewing their little newfound false doctrine, right, to the people, and the people, oh yeah, oh man, that makes so much, not being like the Church of Berea, right? And it says, for this sort are they which creep in their houses and leads captive silly women laden with sin. It says, led away with diverse lusts, ever learning and never able to come to the knowledge of the truth. And that's what you see. All right. All that. They're doing all that, but they can't come to the true wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. Why? Because they left it, right? When they were, when I forgot how, if they were kicked out or they left, GMS and the true wisdom, knowledge, and understanding, right? They left it, right? They left it, right? To try to for their own, vain glory. All right. They left it. All right. And went into their own simpleton ways. All right. Let's go to 1 Timothy 4 and verse number 1. Right. It says prediction of apostasy. It says, now the Spirit speaketh expressly that in the latter times some shall depart from the faith, giving heed to seducing spirits and doctrines of devils, right? And that's what that is, man. It's a doctrine of devils, all right? Full of lies, right? All of a sudden, I've been researching this and, this is, you did a whole buildup of the whole thing, right? It says, speaking lies and hypocrisy, having their conscience seared with the hot iron. And what are they doing? They're getting other people to sear their minds with that hot iron, and ultimately the Lord, basically he did that to what? To blind those who needed to be blind, right? And they'll follow. So they're going to follow, this ignorant way, right? And then they're, so now America is not the lake of fire. All right. So Babylon, right? I mean, it's just straight madness at this point. All right. Straight madness. Right. And that's why the scriptures tell you, what is that? Galatians, right? Galatians chapter 1. And let's start at verse number 6, right? You see, it says, there is no other gospel. It says, I marvel, right? And this is to the Galatians, right? It says, I marvel that ye are so soon removed from him that called you into the grace of Hamashiach unto another gospel. It says, which is not another, but there be some that trouble you and will pervert the gospel of Hamashiach. And that's what you're doing. You're perverting the gospel of the Hamashiach by saying and telling people that, Babylon, right, aka America, is not the lake of fire, right? It says, but though we or an angel from heaven preach any other gospel unto you than that which we have preached unto you, let him be accursed. As we said before, so say I now again, if any man preach any other gospel unto you than that ye have received, let him be accursed. Okay? And that's what you see, man. Right? They're just all looking for that top spot, looking for something, new, and not adhering to the sound doctrine that was given unto them. All right? And now they and where do they go? They go out and to deceive many. Okay? Yahawashi talked about it. Matthew 24. and verse number 11. It says, Matthew chapter 24 and verse 11. It says, and many false prophets shall rise and shall deceive many. Okay, and that's what we're seeing right now, right? This is the disciples asked, what shall be happening in the last days, right? Many false prophets shall arise and shall deceive many. Okay. Let's jump to verse 24. It says, there shall arise false Hamashiachs and false prophets, and will show great signs and wonders, right? And there's so much that if it were possible, they shall deceive the very elect. All right. And that's what they're doing, right? They're using, their great little PowerPoints. He walking around with a sword. Like, yeah, we about to slay him on this. Just that whole prideful mentality. All right. And you see people, they do all that. They use all these gimmicks and things to try to push their false doctrine on people. All right. So it says, for there shall rise false Hamashiachs and false prophets, and shall show great signs and wonders, insomuch, if it were possible, they shall deceive the very elect. All right, the elect are not going to be deceived, but right, Elder Apostle Gabar, showed a comment where somebody, basically said a bunch of horse shit, said, about the whole video, which sums it up. That's what it is, And then under the comment, you had Hassad laughing, LOL or ha ha ha, right? Because it's a game, right? It's about money, and it's about being popular in this thing, right? And at to the point now, you're changing the doctrines, you're changing the the knowledge that you were given, okay? So, but this is what we see, and this is how we know that in the last days, these things were said to have happened. Said that they're going to happen, and we see them playing out. Exactly to that. Let's go to it's another one I wanted. Salakia. Book of John, right? Chapter 8, verse number 31, right? It says, then said Yahawashi to those Jews which believed on him, if ye continue in my word, then ye are my disciples indeed, right? And ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free, right? But it says, if you continue in my word, right? Which means what? There's going to be people who are not going to continue. And we see that happening and playing out even right now, all right? That they're not adhering to these to this wisdom, knowledge, and understanding, this doctrine, that was given unto them, right? And you got, these different things, what do they say? Brotherhood over breakdowns, right? All this folly, right? These are the things, and they have many followings and many people, right, who are following them, And it says, if the blind lead the blind, then they shall all fall into a ditch at the end of the day. All right. And when we talk about Babylon, right? Let's see. Let's go to let's start at verse number 9. Right? This is Jeremiah chapter 50, verse 9. It says, for lo, I will raise up and cause to come against Babylon, right? AKA America, right? An assembly of great nations from the north country, and they shall set themselves in array against her. From thence she shall be taken. Their arrows shall be as a mighty expert men. None shall return in vain. All right. And those arrows are talking about those ICBM missiles. All right. Or those nuclear warheads, right? That are the intercontinental ballistics that can carry, these warheads. Okay. These nuclear warheads. All right. And they're going to be aimed at where? At Babylon. Okay. To what? To shoot and to burn her with fire. Right? Like, what is that? Revelation 17 and verse number 16, it says, "And the 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast," right? Talk about the European Union, right? "These shall hate the whore, and shall make her desolate and naked, and shall eat her flesh and burn her with fire." Okay? And it's going to utterly burn Babylon the Great, all right, with fire, all right? This place is going to be whole desolate, all right? You go to the book of Revelation 18, right? It says, let's go to, let's go to verse number 18. It says, "And cried when they saw the smoke of her burning, saying, What great city is like unto this great city? And they cast dust on their heads and cried, weeping and wailing, saying, Alas, alas, that great city, wherein were made rich of all that had ships in the sea by reason of her costliness. For in 1 hour is she made desolate." Okay, because why? Because this whole place is going to be on fire. All right, through those ICBM missiles and through Yahawashi and the angels and the chariots. All right, completely burning and making this place desolate. All right, go back to Jeremiah 50. Let's go again. Let's see. Here we go. This is Jeremiah chapter 50, verse number 25. It says, Yahawah Bahasham have opened his armory and have brought forth the weapons of his indignation. It says, "For this is the work of Yahawah Bahasham, the most high power of hosts in the land of the Chaldeans." It says, "Come against her from the uttermost border." It says, "Open her storehouses, cast her up as heaps, and destroy her utterly. Let nothing of her be left." Okay, because this place is going to be just a whole, from one coast to the next coast to the other coast, fully on fire. Okay, but nothing and no one's going to be left in this thing. All right. It says, let's see. Let's go to Jeremiah 51. Right. It says, "Thus saith Yahawah Bahasham Yahawashi, Behold, I will raise up against Babylon and against them that dwell in the midst of them, that rise up against me, a destroying wind." Right? A destroying wind. Let's go to the book of Isaiah 66:15. Right, it says, "For by fire, for behold, Yahawah Bahasham Yahawashi will come with fire, and his chariots like a whirlwind, to render his anger with fury and his rebuke with flames of fire." It says, "For by fire and by his sword will Yahawah Bahasham Yahawashi plead with all flesh, and the slain of Yahawah Bahasham Yahawashi shall be many." Okay, when the Lord comes, right, in his chariot, the angels in their chariots, and also those ICBM missiles, right, the sword, all right, to bring destruction, okay, and ultimately to this place, Babylon, all right. The scriptures talk about how many missiles are going to hit this place that's going to rock the earth to and fro like a drunkard, all right. Isaiah 24, let's see. Here we go. Isaiah 24:20 says, "The earth shall reel to and fro like a drunkard, and shall be removed like a cottage, and the transgression thereof shall be heavy upon it, and it shall it shall fall and not rise again. Okay, because this place is set up for destruction, for utter destruction. All right. When John the Revelator saw, you know, Revelation chapter 15, verse 2, it says, "And I saw as it were a sea of glass mingled with fire, and them that had gotten the victory over the beast and over the image and over his mark and over the number of his name stand upon the sea of glass, having the harps of the Most High." Okay, and it's talking about those of the elect who were in the chariots, right, and looking down at what? At that fire, at that lake of fire. All right, and that lake of fire is Babylon. All right, Babylon getting destroyed. Okay, so understand that, right? I mean, it's not that hard, but you have people who want to continue to try to, you know, what's the word I'm looking for? To perverse the scriptures, you know, to perverse the gospel, right? Trying to preach another gospel unto you. All right, that's why the scriptures say, you know, if any man preach another gospel than what you have been preached, let him be accursed. All right, at the end of the day. All right. So I just want to do this lesson. Like I said, Lord's will, this was edifying, right? I'm gonna leave it at that. With that, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory. I want to say, Call Yahawah, Bahasham, Yahawashi, Bahasham, Rawchaa, Qadash, peace and blessings to the elect of the 12 tribes scattered abroad. A mighty shalom. All right, to the 144,000, right? Double honors to the apostles and elders of GMS who ruled well through the Spirit and have fed and edified the sheep. All right, another mighty shalom to the rest of the elect out there. Stay diligent, stay focused, right? And keep your mindset like the Church of Berea and search out these scriptures. When people say stuff, go into the scriptures and search it out, all right, to see if they are true, right? And if people are trying to change up and do these different things in these last days, and it's not according to the truth, right? Remember, it says a double-minded man is unstable in all his ways. All right, you know, give not to a man who's with change, and we see a lot of that going on. All right, for the worse. All right, definitely for the worse. All right, and with that, I'll say shalom.